Yuki Tsunoda came close to pulling off something special on his return to the grid. He qualified 12th, then came out swinging on Sunday, genuinely racing for a top 10 finish and pulling off a great move on the inside into turn 7 to get past Gasly. He crossed the line 11th, missing points by the smallest of margins in a car he had never driven in race conditions before this weekend. Even Racing Bulls admitted they were impressed with how fast he adapted. So now the real question, does this weekend actually change anything for his future, or was it just a nice story that fades the second Hadjar's wrist heels? Here's why it matters more than people might think. This wasn't Tsunoda proving he can still drive a Formula 1 car. Nobody was questioning that. What he actually proved is that he could walk into a completely different generation of machine with new power unit rules, new deployment strategies, none of the muscle memory built up over a full season like everyone else on the grid, and still be fighting for points within a couple of days. That's a much harder thing to pull off than it sounds, and it's exactly the kind of proof a team needs before they hand someone a proper contract again. It also puts a lot of the criticism from his 2025 season into a different light. People remember that year as a disaster, Tsunoda struggling badly alongside Verstappen in a car that had almost no forgiveness built into it. But look at what happened once Lawson went back the other way. Lawson had already been dropped from that exact seat after just 2 races, sent back to Racing Bulls, and once he got there, he suddenly looked like a completely different driver, scoring points regularly and holding his own against Verstappen even this year in the senior team. That tells you the RB21 itself was a huge part of the problem, not just the man driving it. Tsunoda never really got a fair look in a car that actually suited him, and this weekend, in a machine that's at least built to more sensible principles, he showed flashes of exactly why he was rated so highly earlier in his career. There's also something worth saying about how Tsunoda carried himself this weekend, because that matters just as much to a team as raw pace does. He didn't come in trying to prove a point or force moves that weren't there. He built his way into the weekend steadily, admitted openly that everything felt unfamiliar, and let his pace do the talking once he found his rhythm. That kind of measured approach is exactly what a team wants to see from someone they might be trusting with a car again next year. Because the last thing any team needs is a driver who overdrives a difficult situation just to prove something to the paddock. Now, the timing of all this could not line up better for him. There are really only 2 seats on the entire grid worth seriously discussing, and both of them share the same thread running through them: a Japanese manufacturer with a growing stake in the sport. Start with Haas. Esteban Ocon has had a genuinely rough year, sitting a long way adrift of his teammate Ollie Bearman in the standings, and there have been persistent reports all season that his relationship with team boss Ayao Komatsu has been under real strain. Ocon's contract runs out at the end of this year, and Haas has already been publicly linked with a handful of possible replacements, everyone from Ferrari-backed juniors in Formula 2 to their own reserve driver, Jack Doohan. Tsunoda's name has come up in that same conversation, and once you factor in Toyota's involvement, starts to make a lot of sense. Haas now races under the TGR Haas name, with Toyota as full title partner rather than just a technical backer, and Toyota has made it pretty clear they want a bigger presence in this sport going forward. Slotting a driver with more than 100 Grand Prix starts, who happens to be Japanese, into a car carrying that badge is exactly the kind of story a sponsor loves to tell. It's worth remembering too that Ocon has defended himself by pointing at inconsistencies between his car and Bearman's, arguing the two VF26S haven't always behaved the same way, even with identical parts fitted. Komatsu hasn't dismissed that entirely, but at the end of the day, a team fighting for position in a tight midfield battle isn't going to keep a seat warm on an explanation. It's going to keep it warm on results. And right now, the results simply aren't there for Ocon, no matter how you slice the argument. Then there's Aston Martin, which looked like a real possibility for most of this year, but appears to be closing fast. Fernando Alonso has spent months being asked whether 2026 would be his final season, and for a while, it genuinely felt like a coin flip. But the more recent reporting points firmly in one direction. Multiple outlets now say Alonso is close to signing a new deal that keeps him at the team through 2027, reportedly after pushing hard for a significant pay increase, with word of an announcement potentially landing around this exact race weekend or shortly after at Monza. If that goes through, and everything suggests it will, there simply isn't a seat opening up there for next year. Lance Stroll obviously isn't going anywhere either, given his family effectively owns the team. So even though the Honda partnership makes an Aston Martin and Tsunoda pairing tempting on paper in the same way the Toyota story works for Haas, the reality is that door looks shut for now. Put those two next to each other and Haas is clearly the more realistic route back for Tsunoda. The timing works in his favour too, because Haas will be finalising its 2027 plans over exactly this stretch of the season, right when Tsunoda has just handed them fresh proof that he can still perform. Ocon's seat looks genuinely shaky, and the Toyota tie-in gives the whole move a built-in narrative that both the team and the sponsor would probably welcome. It's also worth stepping back and asking what this would actually mean beyond just one driver getting a seat back. Formula One has been without a full-time Japanese driver on the grid since Tsunoda lost his Red Bull seat, and that matters more to a manufacturer like Toyota than fans sometimes give it credit for. A homegrown story, a driver from Honda's own junior pipeline turned Toyota-backed racer, ticks boxes that go well beyond lap times and championship points. These things do factor into boardroom decisions, whether the hardcore racing fan likes to admit it or not. None of this guarantees anything, of course. One good weekend as a stand-in is not the same as a full season proving consistency, and Formula One has a long history of drivers producing a great one-off performance that ends up meaning nothing once the paddock moves on to the next storyline. Hadjar's injury doesn't sound serious enough to keep him out for long, which means Tsunoda's window back in the actual car could close as quickly as it opened. Whatever decisions get made about 2027 will likely come down to conversations happening away from the track entirely, contract talks, sponsor pressure, and how much Komatsu genuinely values what Ocon still brings to the team versus what a fresh face could offer instead. But timing matters in this sport more than almost anything else, and Tsunoda has just been handed about as perfect a moment as he could have asked for. His name was already floating around the driver market before this weekend even started. Now he's got a concrete result to point to, a genuinely strong showing in a car nobody expected him to master this quickly, right as teams start locking in their plans for next season. Whether Haas decides that's enough remains to be seen, but he's given them a much harder decision to make than they probably expected a week ago. So where does this actually leave him? Does one impressive weekend at Zandvoort put Tsunoda back into serious contention for a Haas seat in 2027? Or does he need a lot more than this single race to convince anyone he deserves another shot at a full-time drive? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.